Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything we do. If you like dark content, please like, share, subscribe. Please keep commenting. I love to hear from you guys. It is great to get in contact with you, hear some of the incredible stories, some of the incredible characters and builds you've done, and the awesome DMs that have let you do these incredible things. Without further preamble, we're going to jump into this week's video, The Path of the Berserker Barbarian. Path of the Berserker comes to us from the Player's Handbook. This is the barbarian that makes your rage this hateful kind of a thing. Think Guts from Berserk, or if you've ever seen Fate, the anime series or the manga, in Fate Zero, that is the best representation of what a Berserker barbarian looks like. It is incredible to see that Berserk servant running around and becoming this, like, you see that rage and how it affects it. It is beautiful. Definitely check it out. It is a subclass that makes your hatred take over almost. Like, you'd be almost, if you were a great, good, kind character, and then this hit, you were a murderous death machine. Like, that's that kind of rage. That's that kind of feeling that you should get when you're picking this subclass. Because it is not about using rage as a way to stop something bad from happening. It's about using rage because you are the bad thing that's about to happen. And that is something you should really incorporate. You should be willing to take the risk, because the risk and the negative effects of what this subclass is shouldn't matter if you're really considering taking this class. It is dynamic. I really encourage you to be willing to take the risks in order to get the most out of this subclass. At 3rd level, you gain access to Frenzy. Starting when you choose this path at 3rd level, you can go into a frenzy when you rage. If you do so, for the duration of your rage, you can make a single weapon attack as a bonus action on each of your turns after this one. When your rage ends, you suffer 1 level of exhaustion. Let me explain to you what this means. If you manage to use this frenzy rage 5 times, you die. Exhaustion is a crippling effect. In 1 D&D, there is something in play to help reduce that, to make it more feasible that you can get over it, but that doesn't exist currently. There is almost no way to reduce exhaustion. This is based solely on what a barbarian is. If you're insane and you're trying to go sword and board or 2-weapon fighting with a barbarian, I personally love you. This does not help you. This is if you're wielding a battle axe, a 2-handed weapon, or something like that. The reason why that's great is, as opposed to just doing maybe 2 weapon attacks and then an offhand attack with a simple finesse weapon or a light finesse weapon, or getting dual wielder where you can use 2 regular weapons, so like maybe 2 long swords or something. This is meant for being a 2-handed weapon user. So you're using a great axe, you're using a halberd, you're using a great sword, whatever it is, a maul. This gives you that 3rd attack, which for a barbarian is a huge boost. If you're using polearmancer, you're just using that 1d4, which is okay, but if you could just not need that and then swing that halberd again, you're swinging. If you hit all 3 times, that's 3d10 plus your strength modifier plus your rage bonuses. Plus, if you happen to use Great Weapon Master, that is a plethora of amounts of damage. The problem is exhaustion. Don't let this happen. Don't play this subclass that way. Just void that part and make it that when you rage, you can use your proficiency bonus to gain yourself a bonus attack that turn, or maybe even for that rage. And that's it. Make it reasonable, because it's such a downside to this. That being said, you still see this constantly, and you know what? I could care less. I'd go for it. I'd do it, but I don't mind taking the risk. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. And as a barbarian that you're running into things being as crazy as humanly possible, take that risk. This is dynamic. You don't have to use this on every rage, but if it's boss time and it's time for you to knuckle down and really do everything you can because stuff looks dire, take the level of exhaustion. Fight for your life. That's what this moment is for. That's what makes this the berserker from Fate. That was what makes you this dangerous bloodlust kind of a character. That's what makes you this insane demon blood fueled rage monster, that you are the death and destruction that's coming, not you're using this to stop. Like, it is that kind of a rage where you don't care if you live. That's what this character is. And that's fundamental in how this ability works. So if you're going to be this class, take the risk. It's meaningful. It's impactful. You don't have to use it every time, but it will get the job done, or it will feel great going down the way you want to. This is a fight for your life. This is I will not abandon ship. This is I'm going down, and I'm taking everything with me. That's what this ability is. At 6th level, you gain access to Mindless Rage. You can't be charmed or frightened while raging. If you are charmed or frightened when you enter your rage, the effect is suspended for the duration of the rage. This is a great defensive buff, and it comes on early where you're actually going to start seeing these effects more often. This, on a barbarian, if you hit them with a charmed or a frightened ability, nerfs the barbarian. If they cannot move forward because you're standing in their way and they don't have a ranged weapon, their rage will end. They will be fundamentally useless, and they will just have to be forced to stay in the back. Often they don't have high wisdom, so these saves are rather difficult to make. This makes the frenzied barbarian so angry you can't stop it. That's what really encourages this really risky gameplay. Because now your biggest challenge, your biggest obstacle is not getting close enough to enemies, and that is a big portion of the problems with the barbarian. Sometimes it's hard to close that gap if you rage too early. Now they can't push you away. Now they can't charm you or frighten you or make you drop your weapons and run away. You now are immune to those and cannot deal with it. If it still lasts for the duration that exceeds the rage, you're hit with it. But if you can't kill whatever you have to kill with that rage and with your party behind you, you probably weren't going to kill it anyway. This is a strong, strong defensive buff. And a great way to envision this is to see your character just starting to turn into something. Like if you ever saw 28 Days Later, where the rage virus affects the old man, and he starts just like freaking out and like rubbing his eyes, and he starts to all like get warped into this kind of zombified form where he starts charging at his friends and family. That's kind of what this is, except the rage virus is the enemy, the caster, whoever charmed or frightened you, and that rage that's now taking over is you. And that's great. That's exciting, because you're no longer just at the whims of whether or not you get hit with something like that, because you don't care, because it's not going to stop you, because your hatred, your rage, your frenzy is too strong. It shuts off your brain and turns on kill mode, and that is enticing. At 10th level, you gain access to Intimidating Presence. You can use your action to frighten someone with your menacing presence. When you do so, choose one creature that you can see within 30 feet of you. If the creature can see or hear you, it must succeed on a wisdom saving throw. DC equals 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier. Or be frightened of you until the end of your next turn. On subsequent turns, you can use your action to extend the duration of the effect on the frightened creature until the end of your next turn. The effect ends if the creature ends its turn outside of your line of sight or more than 60 feet away from you. If the creature succeeds on its saving throw, you can't use this feature on that creature again for 24 hours. This is an ability that most people would immediately just flat out dislike, and I can understand why. First and foremost, it requires a charisma modifier, so your charisma usually is underwhelming as a barbarian, as it's not constitution or dexterity or strength. You're really not too impressed by it. This is the circumstance, though. You do not need to be raging to do this. You can just do it. If you are not carrying ranged weapons and you're moving up to someone and they're out of reach, use it. Use it before you enter your rage. If you can't hit them with an attack, you might as well give it a shot. This is a save or suck ability. If they fail that save, that's it. They are frightened. They cannot move closer to you. They cannot attack without disadvantage if they attack anything. They are in the frightened condition. If you're trying to scare someone into giving you information, this is a great moment to use that. That is what this is built on. You don't have to be in rage. A lot of people automatically assume you need to be raging to do this. You don't. If you did need to be raging to do this, it would suck. Flat out, that's just the way it is. But you don't have to be in rage. You can just do this. It gives you a range option that can disable someone. Until the end of your next turn, I get it. You are going to be regularly holding this person down. But it can do a lot. If it's, say, it's another fighter melee type character and you hold that rage there and you land it, they cannot move forward. All of your friends are probably going to have some sort of range options. You're going to have ranged spellcasters. It's better for you just to pace in your spot, just staring this thing down and not letting it move forward so you can tear it apart without having to get close to it. It is great for the ability that it is. It's just very difficult to use on a barbarian. Unless you're rolling for stats and you decided to dump a whole bunch into charisma, it's not ever going to be really that high. But if you have a +2 in charisma, it's still easy for someone to pass it, but you'll land this more often than you don't. And wisdom modifiers on monsters usually aren't as high as they are constitution modifiers or other things. It's not a magical effect. So anything with magical resistance, this has nothing to do with that. So that might be a breaking point. That might make a big difference. And giving something constant disadvantage and the inability to move forward, depending on the circumstance, could be worth your attack. Maybe you just have to stand in front. Maybe it's a narrow passageway, and if you hold this, you can stop anything from coming forward, and your friends can just shoot over your head or over your shoulder or something and get the job done. Tanking and being defensive a lot of times requires you to be a wall. You can do that. And you can isolate a very powerful enemy constantly. It's worth a shot. To just never use this ability, you're missing out on the power of what this can be. At 14th level, the final path of the Berserker ability you gain is Retaliation. When you take damage from a creature that is within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against that creature. It comes on really late at 14th level, but understand reactions where you can just flat out do damage are very few and far between. This limits your need for sentinels, so if something does get into your area, you do not need to have that feat to just hit it. It does not stop them from moving past you, but it does give you a free hit to get your reaction out. And with the Barbarian, you're more so concerned about dealing more damage than you are being combat conscious like a fighter would be. That's more of a fighter, an intellectual, a tactician kind of a thing, Sentinel, where I feel like being a Barbarian is just smash, 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 smash. This is a great thing because it gives you a great use for your reaction, because as a Barbarian, you don't really have that many inherent to your class unless you happen to build towards a certain thing that gives you that. Being able to hit gives you an additional attack, period. You need to take damage, you need to deal out damage. You're constantly going to be within 5 feet of something. This gives you a great way to start whittling down some of these enemies. The smart way to do is to try and gauge on where you are, because with Reckless Attack that you're going to be using this whole time anyway, you have to pick and choose who to use this on. Don't just use it on the first enemy that's going to hit you unless that enemy happens to be the focus, the character that you're trying to take off the board fastest. That's who you should be doing. Wait for them to attack you and then use it. Are they smart enough not to attack you? Depends on the enemy. But if you're within 5 feet of them, definitely give it a shot. And if they're not going to attack you and they're going to try and move away, at least you can use your reaction for an opportunity strike against them. Gauge this on what's around you. Don't just throw this out there. You want to maximize its effectiveness. You only get this once per round. Try and be smart about it. Try and just wait. Sometimes you don't have to just use it immediately. Take a step, take a few hits, choose the one that matters. If they're low and they have multi-attack, then definitely do it on the first hit, because you might prevent them from doing any other hits. And that is a very big difference, and tactfully that is what's going to set you from here as a barbarian to here and what you can do. Our final thoughts on the path of Berserker Barbarian. I tend to dislike barbarians greatly, but when you give me a subclass that gives you a risk and reward and something to take a chance on that might not work out, oh, how my heart sings. I just love that concept. It's probably why I tend to die a lot in games, but it's just exciting to me to have that capability of just, here I go, everything is on the line. If it's not going to happen now, when is it going to happen? This is my moment to put everything I have into just trying to make this work. And putting that passion behind my characters is enticing for me. It's exciting. It gives my characters this great visceral feel when I play them. And it's a joy to be able to do that. And I happen to love the Fate series, so when I get an opportunity to be like the Berserker from Fate Zero, it's just so great, because I envision such a wonderful just sacrificing of your own self for hatred and rage and frenzy, and really create this perfect evil entity that's uncontrollable. That's just death. That's just walking pain and suffering. It just sends this great feeling of strength to my character, that really they are not trying to use their rage to stop something bad. They're using their rage and becoming something bad. And I love that concept. It creates this great duality where you can roleplay away from that and not be that person. Maybe you hate what you turn into. Maybe it's not something you can control. Maybe it's a curse that you feel you have to bear, but you know you have to fight, and you know it's for the good of the world around you that you do this, and it brings you remorse and sadness when you see the devastation you've caused, because maybe you've hurt innocent people before, and as soon as the rage ends, it's just the constant flashes of their faces. You can create a very beautiful role-playing based character when you have a concept like that takes the core ability of the class and melds it into a personal reasoning for the character. And I think that's wonderful. And I think circumstances that have risk show a certain cohesiveness with being an adventurer, with being a hero, because you are taking a risk. That's what makes it heroic. You know it's not safe. You know the odds are never in your favor, but you're doing this because it's what's going to make you or make the world better. And I love that concept. And you can bring that concept to any character, but when you bring it to a barbarian, it carries this gravitas of you're willing to take the risk, because the pain and the suffering doesn't matter to you, because that's what your rage is. It is constant. It is something that you spend so much of your life holding back, that when you release it, it's almost beautiful. You just finally get to be you. And it gives you a lot of great abilities to enforce that. It gives you opportunity to fear something, which I love. Granted, I get it. You're not going to be dumping into charisma. Maybe something happens, though. Maybe you rolled for stats, and maybe you got pretty good across the board. Take a chance on some of these abilities, especially abilities that can debilitate someone. It might be worth it. Yeah, you can't use your action for something else, but it might be worth it just to lock something down. Maybe you needed to intimidate information out of something, or maybe you captured someone and you don't want to kill them, but you need them to tell you a lot of interesting things. That's a great way to do that. Take your chances. It's worth it. That's what this class is built around. Yeah, frenzy and exhaustion is devastating. It is. It is. You use it too often, you're flat out dead. If you use it 5 times in the same day, like if you get that high enough of a level, you're dead. Not you're down and you're making saving throws. You're dead. very, very interesting thing. I say give it a shot. I am 100% for classes that give you something that can be strong, but at a risk, and just make sure to use a two-handed weapon. That being said, we're going to bring this video to a close. If you've made it this far, please like, share, and subscribe. Please tell us about your Path of the Berserker Barbarians and some of your inspirations, some of the awesome things your GMs did, or some variant rules that they created about Frenzy to make it more pleasable or reasonable for endgame. And thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.